Hey, it's Videobob, and today we're going to change the oil on this 1991 Yugo GV Plus. Wow, look at that. What a fine piece of engineering this is. So this is the GV Plus. This is the slightly larger, what is this? 1.3 liter, 4-cylinder. The electronic fuel injected, very rare version of the Yugo, the GV Plus 91. This one had factory air conditioning, which is also known as a second brake. Because when you turn it on, it would be like hitting a wall. Got this little bitty condenser over here, this cute little radiator. We're going to be doing a lot to this Yugo, so if you are a fan of the Yugo, please make sure to subscribe because we're going to be doing a full restoration of this car. But we're going to start by just doing a simple oil change, and I know people love the oil change videos. Tiny little motor. It's so cute, little bitty thing. Of course, these are made by Zastava. Now, since I bought this car, I've made so many new friends in Serbia and former Yugoslavia that have been helping me with parts. Believe it or not, there's a huge community supporting the Yugo. So if you've ever been interested in getting your own Yugo, or if you have a Yugo, check out on Facebook. There are so many Yugo forums, and there are so many really nice, really cool people over in Serbia and over in the surrounding areas that are more than happy to help you get parts for this car. They made this car all the way up until 2008, I think. And you can get pretty much everything you need. You can get the whole car probably shipped to you for like 300 bucks. So anything you need. Let's start with getting this thing up on the rack and having a look at it, draining the oil out of it, and getting it ready. Let it fly. Rise. Rise from the ashes like a phoenix from the grave. Mighty Yugo. I'm digging these little bumpers the dude made for it instead of having the factory bumpers, rally style, you know. They make rally cars out of this thing. You should look it up. There's one that I found that has a V8 in the front and in the back. It's ridiculous. I'm guessing that this is the oil drain. This great big huge plug right there. And there's the oil filter. Wow, this could not be easier. Yeah, if you just had a couple of ramps, it'd be no problem. The oil filter is right there, and there's the drain. Now, never mind this crazy, goofy exhaust system. We got a side pipe situation going here. Never mind that. But yeah, there's a drain. There's a filter. Probably don't even need a wrench. You can just reach up there and grab it. Yeah, I think it's just an Allen. And, you know, it's interesting, like on the DeLorean, the original oil plug was a square, not an Allen. It was like a square, and it came with like a bent wrench. And the first thing you do when you buy a DeLorean, if it has the original drain plug, is you take that off and you replace it with a modern one, so you don't have to deal with that thing. Where's it? Oh, you got it? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right.
I'll let you knock it out. At least we don't have to worry about an arc.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to worry about, and it's not very warmed up either. This is like a weird design too, because there's really not an easy way to do this. You got a rag handy?
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, you just got this Allen plug that goes in there. Interesting way of doing it. I don't know. I'll use my massive strength to just loosen it. It does have a slight angle to it. It's a Napa. I'll let that drain. This is a Napa 1348. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the same one on my generator. I think that's the same one that's on the generator of the bus. Which would make sense because it's a 4-cylinder. It's a diesel 4-cylinder Yanmar. This is a really easy car. You know, you got to think about the people who built this car and where it was used. I mean, of course, this was sold in the United States, but it survived mostly in Yugoslavia, Serbia, and that whole area of the world. And these are some tough, resilient people who have to live in really adverse conditions. They don't have the best roads. They're dealing in very cold environments, snow, rain, rutted roads. This thing is really the Model T of its region, you know. So we've got a Purolator filter. This one is an L10241, but you can cross-reference the Napa 1348. I'll put a link in the description down there. I'm gonna put a little lube on it. A little bit of lube. But this is like the world's easiest oil change. I mean, it just doesn't get too much easier than that. You got that rag handy? Yeah. And actually, if you got that Sharpie, I like to always Sharpie on the date and maybe the miles on the thing. But the date is usually a good indication. Because even if you don't put a lot of miles on the car, you really should change the oil every year. They say 6 months, but you know, even if you have a car that's just sitting around, every year or so, you should change the oil. I guess there's no washer or crush washer on this?
No, it's just kind of like a pipe plug. That's probably good.
Yeah. All right. Having a look under here, here's your fuel filter, real easy to get to. We noticed we got a little bit of a leak coming off of this line running up to the tank. The tank doesn't look like it's hard to drop. I know that this tank has recently been dropped and cleaned. Where's that? Let me see that right again. Maybe this leak is right here right here. I don't know if we have enough line, but maybe we could cut it and move it in. We probably need to replace it. This filter looks pretty new. I mean, you know, compared to everything else. And I don't know if this leak is coming from here, but maybe, you know, a lot of times when you have, what happens is where the clamp is, it cuts into the hose and that starts to leak. And if you have enough extra line, you can cut that piece of hose off and just move it over instead of having to replace the whole hose. So I don't know how much of a leak we have. It was wet, but nothing's coming out of it. And having a look under here, you can see it's actually in pretty good condition, not super rusty. Now I wonder what mounted here. Oh, that was part of the muffler system, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you got a couple of tie downs.
Transverse leaf spring like a Corvette.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah. One big leaf spring going across both wheels. And you know, something actually I wanted to check was the linkage for the shifter. Oh, yeah. Which doesn't look too bad. Let me see, let me rotate this a bit. Pretty common problem on these is like this linkage right here gets loose on the shifter, but this is pretty tight. I like how they put this little cap here to, yeah, it's pretty tight. I mean, we do have a lot of oil caking up under here, which is to be expected on the transfer, or, you know, on this. The CV joints look good.
Probably the boots. I think noticing that one's got a little bit of grease.
It's got a little grease on it. You know, just not much to this thing. It's like a little go-kart. But yeah, this is pretty good shape. I mean, I'd like it to be a little tighter, but it's pretty good. We were checking, these aren't the factory wheels, we were checking out the wheels and we noticed that they're basically the same bolt pattern that the DeLorean uses. And so we could put DeLorean wheels on here if we wanted to. We tried one of the DeLorean spare tires and it fit. So you can get new taillights, you can get the glass and the rubber. You can get so much for this car. There's so many parts available for this thing. It's pretty amazing. And I got a lot of stuff coming. So make sure to subscribe if you're really into Yugos or if you want to learn more about these cars, because we're going to be doing a lot to this car. It's going to be a full transformation, full restoration. I'm going to replace the entire interior, the carpet, all the door cards and the panels, everything. Everything. Well, we were trying to figure out how much oil it holds and what kind of oil. Being a little small motor that gets under high heat, especially as now that it's going to be in Texas, that's not going to fit in there. It's too big. We're going to try this, we're going to use a synthetic 1540, which is what you would normally put in a diesel. Also, ironically, what I use in my generator. The generator on my bus is a 4-cylinder motor about the size of this. And so probably shares a lot of the same parts, quite frankly. We think it holds probably about 3 or 4 quarts, probably 4. That's what my generator holds. And the synthetic 1540 will be good for Texas weather. We think the other oils are going to be a little bit too thin. This is a gallon, so we'll put some in and see what happens. Start it up. If you're going to use it in a real hot climate, I would say put a 2050 synthetic in there, like Royal Purple or Mobil 1. 2050 is a good motorcycle oil. That's what the DeLorean uses, actually, which is an aluminum engine, V6 Volvo, and it uses a 2050. And with an older motor like this, especially with high miles, the thicker oil is going to help give you a little bit more oil pressure and compression, and it won't break down as much. Make sure it's out of gear. Oh, you don't think so? Oh yeah, that battery might be dead. Oh yeah. Strong like bull. Now, that is the advantage of having the fuel injected version of this thing. Thing fired right up. So there you have it. Oil change in a 1991 Yugo GV Plus. There's going to be a lot more coming on this car if you're a fan. So, well, there you have it. 1991 Yugo GV Plus. I think it goes that way. Whole lot more coming on this car. We're going to be doing so much to it, repainting it, redoing the interior, getting the air conditioning working again. This is going to be a fun little car. I cannot wait to take this thing to Cars and Coffee here in Dallas or one of the other car shows. This thing is a real attention getter, the people who remember it. You know, there's some of these cars from the 80s and 90s that have just completely disappeared. You can't find them anywhere. Like, for instance, the Hyundai Excel. I had an 87 Hyundai Excel Sport. The 2-door hatchback with the sunroof. It was black, had the splash graphics and the custom wheels. And that thing was great, and I drove it around in the early 90s, and you cannot find a Hyundai Excel to save your life. The Hyundai Excel competed directly with the Yugo. The Yugo was cheaper, started at a retail price of $39.95, and this was the more expensive version, being the GV Plus, having the slightly larger motor, having the fuel injection, having air conditioning. It was probably closer to about $5,000, but back then a Hyundai was going to set you back $6,000, maybe $7,000. But imagine buying a brand new car for $4,000. And here it is. Whereas the Hyundai, which was a slightly more refined car, completely gone, the Yugo survives to this day. And people have always made fun of the Yugo because it was the cheapest car that you could buy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it was bad. It was just lacking of accoutrement, you know. There's not really much inside. There's not really much on the outside. It's just a simple car. This was Yugoslavia's answer to Germany's Beetle, or America's Model T. They made almost 1 million of these cars. 150,000 of them imported into the U.S. Can't find them anymore. But they continued making these things up until about 2008. And I think they did about 900,000 of them. And under very adverse conditions. You know, NATO had bombed their factory because the company that makes these cars also makes guns. And they blew up the factory, and so they lost a lot of their automation, like for instance their automated painting. And they had to start doing it by hand, and they had to start doing a lot of other things by hand. It's not uncommon to find one of these cars with mixed-matched interiors and things like that, because they really had to make do with whatever they had. But that was the Yugoslavian way. They weren't going to give up. They weren't going to take no, and they were going to continue to make this car. And the people over in what is now Serbia, they're very, very proud of this car. And I've gotten to be friends with so many of them, and they're such really, really great people, the fans of the Yugos. You'll be surprised at the community that surrounds these. And they're incredibly proud of this car. So don't be making fun of it online, because one of these guys might, you know, find you and eat you. This thing even has the Yugoslavian flag on the roof. I was debating whether or not we should keep that, but it's in really poor condition. And maybe we'll pay tribute to that when we redo the car. So make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you can follow along. Hey, I'm Videobob. This is the Yugo GV+. How's my hair? Do I look fat? Okay, I thought so.